welcome back, guys, to the Student Lounge podcast. This is our fifth episode this week. It's a Friday today, as usual. So we have something very exciting today. We have a new guest on our podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Karan. I'm from Haryana, India, and I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Karan's going to be talking about a history topic that he's quite interested in today. Karan, before we start, what are your IB subjects you're taking?
So I'm taking higher level economics, film, language, and literature. Then I'm doing Italian ab initio, environmental sciences, and math applications and interpretation, standard level.
Nice.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of stuff has happened with COVID this week, as usual. So yeah, like in Britain, NHS I think warned us of a crunch in vaccine supply next month. So this might be a potential setback, meaning maybe June 21st we won't be back to no lockdown.
Yeah, I think it might just end up taking the whole year. That's kind of my prediction.
Yeah, I think maybe by at least end of July we'll definitely be out of a lockdown. I think.
Yeah, hopefully, because it'll be summer as well.
Yeah. So hopefully nothing goes completely wrong.
Yeah, I don't think
I think Italy's gone back into a big lockdown.
Yeah, that's true. They were in a lockdown, I think it was 2 days
Because
ago.
their cases rose this week.
On contribution to this, I believe there's 5 million vaccinations pending for the UK from India, which is being held up during April, so that might cause delays as well.
Wow.
Yeah, we were supposed to get a delivery from the UK, from India. That's getting delayed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there was I think it was the president of Tanzania, I'm not sure. But he passed away I think 2 days ago. And there's a lot of irony with that because he's been in complete denial with COVID since it started. And it's caused all these Tanzanians to have lost a lot of life because he didn't put any lockdown rule in or mask thing.
Yeah.
And now they're not not telling anyone how he died, so everyone's just assuming it was COVID because he thought that God will save everyone.
Okay, yeah, maybe it was. Maybe he died from COVID.
Yeah, well, no one knows.
That's sad though.
Yeah, it is.
On a more positive note, we have Easter break coming up soon.
Yeah, only 1.5 weeks.
Yeah,
now.
I really need it.
Yeah, it's been.
They really just piled up a lot of the work because of the amount of stuff we missed in lockdown.
Yeah.
It's been continuous since January,
And-
and February break didn't even really feel like a break.
Yeah.
So hopefully the Easter one I can relax a little bit.
Well, I think I'm really going to focus on my extended essay that break.
Yeah, same.
I think I will too, because it's gonna take a long time.
I don't know if I'm correct, but is the first draft supposed to be in by June, right?
Yeah, by the
first draft. Yeah.
But I believe you only need 1,000 words to submit. You don't actually need the full essay. But that could be varied depending on school.
Yeah. I feel like I haven't done anything, but I know I've done stuff, but it just feels like it's going so fast.
Yeah, it's going quick.
It feels like we were picking the topics just now.
I think we pretty much were though.
No, it's been a while. I think we picked before Christmas.
I personally think that we should have started talking about extended essay a lot earlier. Because I know from some of my friends who left and went to other IB schools, they started talking about that in August.
Oh wow, okay.
So they're a lot further ahead than us.
Yeah, actually.
That's a good idea though to talk about in August.
But even Cass, we could have started talking about it in August, but they waited a while.
Yeah.
My friends from my old school, it seems like they're just way ahead of us in everything. Because I was talking about physics and they were maybe a topic and a half ahead, and they've already started their IAs and everything.
But did they have any lockdown since start of school?
Yeah, I think they're still in lockdown right now.
Oh wow.
So
yeah, their school just seems more efficient then.
yeah. So hopefully our teachers can speed up.
Yeah, I think I have quite a lot of stuff for CAS now. I think I'm good. I just have to commit to them.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I think hopefully by the end of 11th grade, maybe the couple months into 12th, I can be done with CAS.
Yeah, I mean, there's no set hours, right? You just the more you do, the better, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like I read somewhere that it's 50, but I don't know if that's accurate or not.
No, I think because even my brother said when he did it, there was no actual hours. Just I think the more you did and the more like varied it was, the better.
Okay. Well, as long as I pass CAS, that's fine.
Yeah, imagine we don't pass IB because of CAS. It's relatively a very easy thing to complete.
Yeah. So I was reading an article or kind of following this along over the last week, and it's about the vaccine rollout within the EU and the UK. Basically, the AstraZeneca vaccines have kind of been halted in the UK because of a fear of how safe they are. Because a couple of cases resulted in blood clots in the brain, I think.
Oh, really?
So people are getting very worried about how safe these vaccines are and whether or not they need to be reassessed. So the European Union has kind of slowed down their rollout and stopped providing the AstraZeneca vaccines for now while it goes under review.
Yeah, I mean, the vaccine in general, the rollout of it was incredibly quick because even with like usually you wait like 10 years for a vaccine to come out.
Yeah.
So I understand that there would I think it was inevitable that there were going to be problems with certain vaccines that were not yet discovered.
And I think, in my opinion, it doesn't really make sense to halt the rollout of the AstraZeneca because it is clearly proven to be safe. But as it says in the article, it says disentangling of causation and correlation, because a lot of people just think if the blood clot happened for 2 or 3 people out of 5 million, then it's the direct effect of the vaccine.
Yeah, it says less than 1%.
Yeah.
Only really suffered.
And
Yeah.
Go on.
And the European Medicines Agency did comment on it, or they even investigated, and they released a report on it saying it was actually it was safe and it was okay to use on populations in the EU. And a lot of countries, especially the Scandinavian countries, still kept the vaccines on hold, which I found really strange because, I mean, the EMEA, it really does give the medical advice in the EU to all the member states. And I think it's quite, draconian to keep these vaccines and investigate them while also keeping them on hold and not giving them to the populations in the EU.
Yeah, because it's clearly been shown that the vaccines are effective, and holding them back like this could cost many lives that could have been saved just because they stopped giving out vaccines.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there was a slight political aspect to the stopping of the rollout right now within the EU, because the UK was able to get a lot of vaccines very fast, whereas there were some concerns about the vaccine within the EU. So they were off to a much slower start. So
there's a supply shortage in Europe because AstraZeneca, a while ago, they promised that they'd deliver, I think it was 100 million vaccines, but they're falling short of even their now promised delivery of 40 million. So I think that's maybe why Europe might have some sort of a grudge against the UK, because they did stop a few shipments going to, for example, Australia from, I think it was Italy, but yeah, they are trying to get more vaccines because they are falling short in their vaccination program.
Yeah, I also heard that there's some component or something needed to produce the vaccine that's being provided to the UK by America, and they, or Biden has decided to stop giving it to other countries to focus on the United States, so that there's another supply shortage there.
So in the article I was looking at, I wanted to talk about why the remembrance of Indian soldiers who fought for the British Empire in World War II is so political and forgotten. Before we begin our conversation, I wanted to give you 5 little interesting facts, which essentially gives you a tiny bit of background knowledge. So in the Second World War, the Indian Armed Forces actually received over 15% of the Victoria Crosses awarded. On top of that, they were a volunteer army. There was no forced conscription, it was all voluntary. The British also engaged in large production in India and wouldn't be able to supply themselves without it. And the Indian Armed Forces did serve in all theatres of the Second World War, from Asia to even Europe, as well as North Africa. And the war prompted the end of the British Empire in India. Now, moving on to the article, which was written by The Conversation in November 10, 2017. Essentially, it talks about why India is forgotten completely, even though their contributions were so large. India also had the largest volunteer army in the world with 2.5 million men. By India, what I mean is modern-day Pakistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and India itself. And it's quite a big topic to be discussed nowadays because it's quite controversial due to countries not giving any recognition. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think it's quite surprising because a lot of stuff throughout history is kind of repressed from the mainstream knowledge that we all know about. So usually about World War II, it's mainly about the UK and Germany, and we don't really learn about other countries, so it's quite interesting.
On topic of that, I would say there's a British memory of World War II because it's a narrative. No one really talks about the fact that the British Empire was involved. It's always Britain itself. Even though majority of it, Akash, go ahead.
It's just it's a very when we think of World War II, we think of Churchill as the victor, but obviously there was this wartime history belongs to so many other countries, like you said, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan,
Ireland, Kenya, all of them.
Yeah, Ireland.
So we always believed that it was without Churchill, nothing would have happened, which is just not true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I fully agree with that statement. I believe there is some sort of, I guess you could say, patriotism or false historical remembrance of, they think it was only the British people that helped Britain win the war, when in reality, majority of the contributions were from the colonies.
And I think also reflects a bit of racial undertone with this and why they were not recognized.
Yeah, definitely.
We had a conversation about this for quite a long time today in TOK. So we were talking about, we looked at the quote from Churchill, "History is written by the victors."
Oh yeah.
And it's just that quote it makes sense to an extent because obviously the people that are perceived as the winners or the ones that came out on top have a upper hand or leverage on the narrative that's displayed.
Yeah,
definitely. I would also like to say the reason why the remembrance of India during the Second World War for the British people is so controversial is mainly due to the Bengal famine, in which 3 million people died, and this was in 1943. And this was a man-made famine, essentially. Could have been completely avoided had Churchill ordered a large scale of food not to be sent to the war theaters, and then to be supplied to Bengal. And a fun fact about this is that majority of the food that was exported into the war fronts was not actually used. It was stockpiled and it was never used. So that's why it's quite political, because many people don't like to talk about the British war crimes, I guess you could say. It's always focused on Germany and Japan and all the axis like Italy and what they've done.
Yeah.
Like I guarantee you could ask a majority of people, they wouldn't know the British had concentration camps in Africa. Like it's quite
No, actually it was the British who first actually created concentration camps. That's actually true.
So that's why this topic is very, very diverse in terms of, and it's quite important actually in terms of history, because what's happening really is people are they're kind of diverting the historical accuracy of what they're saying.
Yeah. And going back to what Advait was talking about Churchill intending to write his own history, essentially, it was obviously we cannot disregard that he did play a large role in it. So he did. Then he was able to portray himself quite favorably. But it's just if the person writing or studying an event in history has been involved in it, it creates a large amount of objectivity. And because he was such a prominent figure, he obviously made that perspective large around the world, and that's why I think countries like India were kind of forgotten. Because it's even seen in movies. As I remember a couple of years ago when Dunkirk came out, the movie. It was we all know about Dunkirk, but then it didn't show any role of about how the Indian soldiers on Dunkirk. There was not a single soldier in that.
I believe the only movie that was created in a Hollywood atmosphere that was portrayed was 18 or 14?
1917.
1917, where we saw the introduction of Sikh soldiers.
Yes.
In the movie itself, and that was quite a shock to me because that has never been done before in any movie.
So we can see like depends on who writes history. It's portrayed extremely differently, and we'll see that in so much pop culture today as well.
Definitely. So I would like to finish off the article with that.
Speaking about history and things. Again, we're talking about, this was basically our topic in TOK today, so we had quite a lot to talk about. So we were talking about how recently multiple statues of maybe slave owners or horrible people from the past were being taken down or thrown into the ocean and stuff. So I just wanted to get your guys' perspective. Do you think that that's like the right thing to do in terms of history?
I would say, in my personal opinion, I believe we're making history itself, because what you're doing is it's not like historical. I mean, I do agree. Statues are definitely part of history. It's a part of showing, the past and kind of altering it. I do believe by removing this, we're creating history ourselves.
But at the same time, I believe that like the United Kingdom was built on racism. That was my main forefront, and I could see you could argue that by destroying all these racial figures in colonial
masking it.
I feel like it's a way of masking it, and I think we need to realize that our country was built on racism to progress, and I think by destroying all these statues, you're kind of hiding it in a way.
Yeah, it goes into the point of, are you in a sense erasing a certain aspect of history or neglecting it by not representing it? But I think with these statues like this, I think it does make sense to take them down and change the way that history is, because if that, although you can remind yourself about what it is, if it's still there, then it kind of propagates the same message, which is not the most progressive thing.
I heard an interesting argument also similar to you guys' arguments, and it's essentially that statues, especially of political figures or people who have divided nations or fought in wars, like people like Winston Churchill, it may not exactly be an effective way of portraying history to make a statue. It's because when you make that statue and when you place it in public, you're not only, I suppose, accenting or accentuating the glorified parts of that person, but you're also showing that people celebrate the bad parts or the undesirable acts of this person as well. So you do have to take into consideration, for example, maybe Winston Churchill, sure, he did help greatly in Britain's fight in the Second World War, but he did also make a lot of racist remarks. So maybe when you're building statues and putting them in public, like that, you have to take that into consideration and know really what type of impact those statues will have on the people walking past them every day and looking at those statues.
I never thought about it like that. It's true because then it makes everyone everyone will have a different perspective on, let's say, Hitler. So I agree that statues really, it does glorify only the good parts of Hitler, of Churchill.
It's like, even if you do destroy the statue, you're not really erasing the history of what happened, because the statue is an exaggerated or idealized version of whoever that person was. So if you're aiming for as much objectivity as you can, then maybe statues aren't the best thing.
Okay, so following up, I have another article which is quite controversial, but it's about the role of Azad Hind Fauji in India's freedom front. So, for background knowledge, most of you must know that Gandhi is seen as the main political figure for Indian independence, especially during the World War II crisis and all. However, it's the same as the way it relates to the statues. He's quite eccentrified in ways. He really did not do that much for the freedom front of India, to be fair. Many people in India, like Indians, ethnic Indians, know that it was actually Azad Hind Fauji which mainly boosted it. However, they're quite underplayed. Now, the question I had in mind, which kind of relates to TOK, is even though both sides were bad, why is one seen as bad and one seen as good when they basically did the same thing? So Azad Hind Fauji was basically known as the Provisional Government of India. It was a government created by Japan off of Indian prisoners of war in Singapore by the British. So it was led by Subhash Chandra Bose, and they had to take foreign help from the Axis powers to get rid of British reign in the Indian Raj. So when I mean foreign powers, I'm talking about the Nazi regime, the Imperial Japanese Empire, and the Kingdom of Italy. Now, when Britain had just lost Singapore to Japan, Japan capitalized their strength against British soldiers with Indian soldiers. And around this time, about 45,000 Indian soldiers joined the Japanese army to form Azad Hind Fauji in 1942. Now, the main conversation about this is this army, it's basically a side of perspective. People in India will worship this army as something that was great. Just like Western people see Gandhi as an advocate for peace, Indian people will see this army as something that was, this movement essentially, as something that was great for the country, regardless of who they were allied to, even though Hitler basically essentially formulated majority of the army's tactics and everything like that, and his contribution in the Freedom Front itself. The same can be said about the British and the usage of Indian soldiers and what they were doing in the Raj. So the question is, why does the Western mind deplay this Freedom Front just because it was allied with the Axis, when basically the UK did worse in India than they did?
I think it lends itself back into the previous discussion about the victor writing the narrative history.
Yeah.
It's just those that had the leverage wrote whatever or documented whatever they could to portray themselves in the best light possible.
Definitely, yeah.
Or what do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. We've seen Gandhi. He's been seen as the heroic figure in history for freeing India, and because of that, because he was considered, and I will say this in, if he was considered the victor, that's why history perceives him as this heroic figure in that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I definitely
Obviously.
believe it's sorry, Rafa, go ahead.
No, because I was just gonna say, yeah, because we like in history we depict Gandhi as obviously just what Akash said, like the main man, but we don't see like the others, the other types of perspectives, you know, that.
It's kind of like the Churchill conversation we had, where Churchill he was crucial, essentially Gandhi was crucial as well, but he essentially takes all of the contribution from everyone else and portrays it as his own. I believe it's also a matter of perspective, as in, if you place yourself as an Indian during the colonial period and you were getting abused on a daily basis, because the conversation here is many people think the movement was bad because it was affiliated with Axis, but in my personal opinion, being from Haryana where the movement was quite big, I would personally say that in war there's no winning side. Essentially, they had no choice but to take help from them, and I believe both sides are equally as bad, but why is one side glorified and the other not?
Yeah, because even Gandhi, like, same thing with Churchill. We only see the good sides, but he has a legacy of racism, sexual predation, being misogynistic, but we don't see any of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, yeah, that was our episode today. First episode with a guest. Thanks, Karan, for doing that with us.
No problem.
It's really interesting, and yeah, Advait, anything else?
Yeah, it was fun having a guest today, finally. So we had 4 kind of beginner podcasts with just us 4. So from now on, we'll try and do slightly more diverse podcasts with more.
This is what we
interesting ideas.
essentially. Sorry.
Go on. What were you gonna say?
This is what essentially we wanted to do. We wanted to bring in people who have their own views, and we wanted them to talk about, or just something that they're passionate about. And I'm glad that we finally managed to get a guest on.
Yeah.
It's good.
So next week we'll have maybe a different episode format. So it'll be exciting. And
Thanks, everyone.
make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And thank you for listening.